Cheslie Kryst was crowned Miss USA in May 2019. She was an attorney and a national correspondent for the entertainment show Extra, where she was nominated for 2 Daytime Emmy Awards. To the world, she seemed to have it all. She started writing her book, sharing the story of passing her bar exams, winning Miss USA, and her other work. But alongside those highs, she also wrote about her story with mental health illness. Sadly, Cheslie didn't get to finish her book. She died by suicide on the 30th of January 2022, aged just 30 years old. Her last wish was that her mother, April Simpkins, finish her book on her behalf. That book is titled By the Time You Read This. The first half is written by Cheslie, the second half is written by April. Today, April shares with me her devastating story of losing a beloved daughter by suicide, how she manages her own grief on a daily basis, what she needs from others when she's grieving, how she supports her other children in their grief, and why and how she doesn't allow guilt to be any part of her grief journey. This is Cheslie's mum, April Simpkins. Your intention with this book is to help people to feel less alone, and you also outline Cheslie's intentions for this book too within it. And in order to get the word out there from both yourself and from Cheslie, you've done quite a few of these interviews. How has it been for you during these interviews and talking about Cheslie?
Thank you for that question, Rory. Sometimes it's cathartic and it feels very calming to just be able to talk about Cheslie. And sometimes it has been very difficult and it has felt like I am experiencing her loss and the way it felt traumatically right after she passed. So there's kind of a balance. It can't really pinpoint any one specific way, and so I feel like there's a range between, it being re-traumatizing and it being cathartic.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose in many ways, to be able to get you through that, you must have to remind yourself of your intention at times.
Absolutely. This is not really about me, and I just remember to stay focused, that this was Cheslie's final wish, to see that her works be published, and it's also a tool that helps those who are struggling. It helps family members of those who are struggling to feel seen, heard, and understood.
Mm-hmm. Is it difficult for you to talk about her in the past tense?
Sometimes. Before Cheslie passed, she's the closest person to me that I've ever lost. And so I didn't understand the depth and pain of grief until I lost Cheslie. And I would hear people, before Cheslie died, I would hear people say that they thought of their loved one every single day. And I thought, wow, every day. But now that I'm here, it is so true. I think about her every single day. And it's keeping those memories alive for me in my mind that eases the pain of missing her.
Mm-hmm. Are some days tougher than others?
Yes. Grief is unpredictable. I have learned a lot on my grief journey. I've learned that grief is going to be with me. We're going to do life together. Sometimes I'm in the driver's seat, and sometimes grief is in the driver's seat. And When I am having days that I'm experiencing tremendous grief, those are very difficult days. And I can't predict it. I can't tell you that tomorrow will be a great day. Tomorrow will take care of tomorrow, and tomorrow may be a day that I feel crushed by the weight of grief.
On those days where you feel crushed by it, in this short amount of time that you've been on your grief journey, what have you learned about those things that support you? Who are they? What are they?
I have had to learn myself how to be vulnerable and how to ask for help, which feels very counterintuitive for me. I became a mom at a young age. I was 21. I was married. And so my entire adult life, I've spent caring for others and not really focusing on myself. And grief doesn't work that way. I can't busy my way through grief. I can't stay in my head without it going to my heart and emotions. And so I've had to learn how to tell people that I'm not okay and what I need from them, whether that's just someone to listen or understand or give me space to just be alone or be quiet. I've had to learn how to do that.
And I suppose that's interesting what you say in terms of what you need at that moment, because does that change day to day, hour to hour, sometimes minute by minute?
Yes, it absolutely does. I'm fortunate that my husband is a great partner and that he understands my grief. And the upside for both of us is that we work remotely from home. So we are here each day throughout the day to offer each other comfort. And I don't have to go into long dialogue with him on what I need at that moment. Many times he can sense it, and he will, bring me something to eat because he'll notice that I haven't been eating. My appetite seems to be the first thing affected when I'm having a terrible bout with grief. Sometimes he will encourage me to just go stretch out for a few minutes or go get some air, some sunshine. And so it's great having someone that I can lean on like that, who is attentive and available.
Mm-hmm. Who probably sometimes knows before you do when it's hit.
Yes, he sees the patterns and he kind of can sense when I'm not going to be okay. And I reach out to my children. I have younger children. I have a 15-year-old and a 16-year-old who live at home, but I have older children, and my oldest daughter, who is 35, she and I comfort each other. We both miss Cheslie terribly, and we reach out to one another sometimes when we're having those moments because we know how to send those words of encouragement and support.
Let's talk about Cheslie and the book. And on the front cover, below the title, which is by the time you read this, it says, "The space between Cheslie's smile and mental illness." What did you come to learn about how big that was?
I've known about that space between her smile and her mental illness because I've seen her at both ends of that spectrum. But many people who are not in her close circle did not see that space. Many of them only saw her smile when she was Miss USA or when she was, entertainment news correspondent. They only saw that side of her. I knew my daughter was battling a mental illness. And when I read her manuscript for the first time, it was clear to me that she was talking about what goes on in her head, what it is like experiencing those troubling thoughts, of not being enough or imposter syndrome or feeling like she's failing when actually she's really thriving. And so it seemed, appropriate to use the word space for those who did not know her, and I felt like it was a better description of what the reader would find in the book.
Mm-hmm. And the manuscript you said that you read, you only first saw that after her death, is that right?
That is correct. That is correct.
How do you remember, or how do you recall reading those deep inner thoughts for the first time?
It was so hard. I didn't know. I knew Cheslie was writing a book, and I knew it was something she was proud of, but I had not read the manuscript. She wrote the book in 2021. I had not read the manuscript, and after she passed and I began to read the depth of her insecurities, it hurt. I wanted to, I cried. I wanted to hold her. And there were many times when Cheslie and I would talk and I would see that side of her. I would see the insecurity and I would, give her words of encouragement or just listen. But to see it in print, so well described, hurt my heart, hurt my mommy heart.
Mm-hmm. In terms of, because you mentioned there with the Miss USA, so it seems to be on the outside that Cheslie's got everything together. She's winning the Miss USA. She's got a very loving family, particularly a loving mother. You described there a therapist, a close network of friends. And it appears to be that here's a girl who's got everything. But
yes,
in the book, she writes that winning Miss USA hadn't made her imposter syndrome go away. And I think that's such an important message, and one that I know that you're carrying on, to say that with this darkness and this pain inside, that these external things, these external achievements, it just won't fix them.
You are 100% correct. And I do hope that people who read the book get that message. So thank you for pointing that out. Because after Cheslie passed, there were people who could recite her achievements. And there are so many more that, that the general public does not know, because Cheslie just was not a showy, braggadocious kind of person. But she was extremely accomplished. But having a mental illness is not erased or nurtured by achievements. Having those achievements is wonderful. I mean, Cheslie was born brilliant, I like to say. I mean, I knew that she was smart as a whip at a very young age. But, if all it took, Rory, to cure a mental illness was achievements, then we wouldn't be battling it at the rate that we are. I think sometimes there is confusion between mental health, the state of your mental health, and a mental illness, which comes with a diagnosis and hopefully for many a treatment plan. And we all are working to support good mental health as much as we do good physical health. And we do things to take care and strengthen our mental health. Some people meditate or journal or practice self-care, getting good rest, nutrition. All of those things help support good mental health. Many of us have bouts with anxiety or depression or times when we just feel emotionally drained. Many of us have that. And that, addressing that is very different than realizing that there are people who have a diagnosis of a mental illness. The two are just not the same. And so Cheslie, what she struggled with, which was persistent depressive disorder, what she struggled with was not going to be cured through an accomplishment or an achievement.
Mm-hmm.
It was something she learned to live with.
To live with, to manage, to work through.
Exactly.
How was that for you as her mother? Because you write in the book that when she came to you at times, that over a period of time, you realised that your job as a mother wasn't to fix her.
Right.
Which is a big statement and a very difficult one, I would imagine, for you to reach a place of understanding. But how did you reach that place of understanding, and what exactly does that mean?
I tell you, as a mom, as a parent, if you are a loving parent, from the time your child is born, you feel this innate sense to protect them. And many parents would go to the mat and fight any foe to protect their child. It's just an instinct. But a mental illness is not something I can fight for her. It's not a battle a parent can step into the ring and beat the opponent. This is something that individual has to fight on their own. And understanding that difference is where you reach the intersection of learning to not try to be a savior, but to be their supporter. I can't fight the battle for her, but I can certainly help her amass the tools she needs to fight. I can certainly be there for her as a resting place when she's tired. Those things I can do, and that is what being a supporter is all about.
And I suppose in a way it kind of goes back to what we talked about at the start of this conversation, in terms of, in your grief now, your husband is asking, what do you need from me in this moment? Which is what you as a parent is the best way to approach a child with mental illness.
Absolutely. It's almost human instinct. We don't like to see people in pain. We don't like to see people suffering. And you want that person to be okay. But learning to be a supporter is learning to let them be in that place where they're not okay and be with them in that place. When my husband is helping me and supporting me, his goal is not to try to put a smile on my face. Mm-hmm. His goal isn't to get me to shake it off and get moving. His goal is to make sure that I'm comfortable while I'm in that place. And that I appreciate. And as a parent, it feels counterintuitive. Mm-hmm. It's very hard to just allow your child to not be okay.
Because you feel like you're doing nothing, but actually
Absolutely.
You're doing everything.
100%. And, when our children are very young, if they are hurt, as a parent, you put them on your lap and you hold them and you just provide comfort for them. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, as our children get older and older, we begin to say things like, it's really not that bad, or shake it off, or hey, there'll be another chance or another time. Like we go to this place of trying to get them to manage their feelings and emotion and mental state. And the problem with that is we don't give them room to express where they are, or to just exist in that moment and feel what they feel, and allow them to take that first step of saying, okay, now I'm ready to, move past or move through. It's very hard to learn that, but once a parent understands and learns that, you really are able to draw into your child as a supporter.
Mm-hmm. Going back to Cheslie's story in the book, and you write about the time of her death in great detail. Very, very difficult to hear your words and what you went through at that very, very difficult time, in displaying very private details in terms of the text message that she had sent, which is in the book. But you also write in the book, and you say there's no guidebook on what to do if your child suddenly dies in another state. How did you write your own guidebook for that?
I can't even take a lot of credit for creating the guidebook, because when, we did not know that Cheslie had passed. We didn't know how she died until, we were in a plane taking off for New York, thinking I was going to New York to be with my child, to comfort her and to help her through this what must be a very difficult moment for her. And that wasn't the case. And when we landed in this state where we just didn't know how anything worked, we were lost. It was like being in the land of Oz. And we were fortunate that three of our very, very good friends came to New York and helped. But I could not stay there. It was just too painful for me to be in New York without Cheslie there, and knowing that my children back home were without me and going through so much trauma. I just felt torn. And so two of our friends brought me back home. And so it was my husband who had to figure things out, my husband and our other dear friend who was there. And, we knew that the first thing we had to do was find out how to bring her home. And that kind of steered, having that as an end goal, kind of steered the avenues that he took, collecting her things from the police who had, taken some of her electronics, and contacting a funeral home in New York so that they could then send her home to South Carolina. Just all of these things that we didn't know. But once my husband began to ask questions, he was able to kind of get a course of action. And my husband is an attorney by career. And so for him, going through a process is his wheelhouse. And he's also the kind of person who, in the face of crisis, he is the cool head. So he really was the best person to stay there in New York and find out everything we needed to know to bring her home. That was honestly our end goal.
He's a good man, and I can tell that from how you write about him in the book as well.
Yeah.
You've got a good support system there.
Thank you.
When you talk about that and how torn you were between New York and then not being with your other children back at home, in the grief process as well, in the days, the weeks, even the months and years that followed, how have you found managing your children's grief on top of your own?
One thing about my children, all 6 of them, is they are very different people. And I really see that as a beautiful thing. But they each, my 5 children who are still with me, they each grieved in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the best things we did for our family after Cheslie passed is we went to a grief counselor as a family so that we could talk openly in what felt like a very safe space about how we're processing grief, what we're doing and what we need when we are feeling heavy with grief. Cheslie and my older 3 children are from my first marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So they are all very, very close. They're close in age. Their ages between 27 and 35. Cheslie was a part of their development in life. But I have 2 younger children with my husband, and they are 15 and 16. And for them, Cheslie was just kind of like a fun aunt, if you will, who would come and hang out for a while, because by the time they were born, she was off to college. So they didn't have the same relationship. And so for all of us, learning how Cheslie fit into our lives, and talking through how that is affecting our grief helps me as their mother to connect with them in their grieving. She has an older sister who's very protective. So her grief looks very different than my sons, who were all younger than Cheslie. Cheslie was their big sister. And so it's been remarkable, but we've all learned how to talk to one another, how to give each other space to grieve the way that we grieve. There is no face for grief, honestly.
There's no guidebook for grief.
There isn't. There really isn't.
In your home, you've created that space. Outside of your home, having been through what you've been through, it's very difficult sometimes, I would imagine, when people meet you at the grocery store or wherever you may be, and that thought goes through their head of, do I mention Cheslie? Is it rude if I don't mention Cheslie? Do I bring it up? Do I send my condolences? What do I do? It's a difficult place for people to be in sometimes around grief. Some people have difficulty in dealing with that when it comes to other people. Does that change over time for you, for what you want from people or need from people in those moments?
For me, it's been pretty consistent. I tell people who approach me and tell me, something that they remember about Cheslie or a personal interaction. I tell them that I love that. I love hearing stories about Cheslie. It's almost like it keeps her alive in my head and heart to experience something new about her. And that's what those stories bring to me. But I do encounter people who, almost apologetically will say something about Cheslie, like, wow, she was such an amazing person. We're so sorry for your loss. And so I guide them in that, thank you. And I will talk about her and encourage them to talk about her and share about her. I do try to give people that space. But, I have some family members who are not that way and who would prefer not to, be hit with a story or a reminder. It's still just very fresh for them. Sometimes for me, it seems like she's been gone longer than she has. Sometimes it seems like it's been 10 years. Sometimes it seems like it's only been 6 months. And part of that for me is because when Cheslie passed, I had to manage her estate. So from the time she passed, on a regular basis, myself or my husband was having to deal with legal issues or her employment issues and a number of things. And so I didn't have the option of not talking about Cheslie to some degree.
In terms of guilt, which you write about very openly in the book, you write, guilt can crush your soul. It's those questions that people may ask around suicide of, what could I have done? What should I have done? Did I miss the signs? How did you reach a place of understanding to write guilt can crush your soul?
In the book, I talk about Cheslie's first attempt, which happened in 2015. And when she was in the hospital after that first attempt, we were monitoring her physical health and, of course, her mental health. So there was a psychiatrist there, but there were also physicians there trying to ensure that she was not going to go into kidney failure and some other things. And I remember vividly this feeling of what did I miss, and the guilt of, did I spend enough time with her? What could I have done differently if I wasn't working so much? I mean, I really wallowed in that, and then began to pray and beg and bargain with God that if you just let her live, that I would do things differently, that I would draw to her, that I would be there for her every moment. And so that was the turning point. I didn't have guilt because I treated every single day like it was the only day she and I would have. If she had passed back in 2015 after her first attempt, we'd be having a very different conversation. I would be in a very, very different place. But I had 6 years of many days of enjoying it like it was the only day she and I would have together. And so I'm grateful. For the time that we had.
It was there for a reason.
Absolutely. So guilt has no place in my grief journey.
Does it have a place, or did it have a place in your journey in terms of not guilt for what happened, but guilt on the days where, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what the right word here is, but
It's okay.
Joy is, I can't imagine joy being a huge part of your life, but those days where you smile or those days where you laugh, does guilt show up in those days?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I don't entertain guilt. I really firmly believe that guilt comes from a place of regret, and I don't have that. Cheslie was battling a mental illness, and if she had been battling a physical illness, if my daughter had been diagnosed with terminal cancer, people would approach this differently. If she had a terminal cancer and the doctor said, she probably has 3 to 5 years to live, I think if any person heard that about someone they love, they would make the most of those 3 to 5 years. They would make the most of it every day. And it's really not much different when you have someone who is battling a mental illness. You just can't take anything for granted. And so I didn't feel guilt. I remember feeling like I'd lost myself, and I grieved for that. And I talk about that in the book. My life isn't the same. I loved my life. I knew it. There was a rhythm to it. It made sense. I had goals. And when Cheslie died, my life did not look the same. And I grieved that. I felt angry for that. I felt robbed. And I just went through many emotions. And it wasn't about a blame or guilt. It was just knowing how I felt about my own life that was changing beyond my control.
And when you say felt the anger, how did you overcome that to not have that in your life?
With really good counselor and learning to accept where I am. I had to take time to rewrite my own life and my own mission and my own purpose. And when I did that, which, included becoming a mental health advocate, I felt rejuvenation. I had not planned in my life to be a mental health advocate. This is something that was part of the change that occurred in my life and many other things. And I just had to learn to live in the life that I have now. And that took a while, but that was my end goal.
Which you find your purpose.
Yes.
What would you say is the greatest lesson that Cheslie taught you in her life and in her death?
Oh, wow. I don't even know that I could think of a greatest, one that would reign supreme, but one thing that I always loved and admired about Cheslie was her humility and her generosity. And she was absolutely brilliant. I can't even tell you how smart as a whip this woman was. And, it was like any subject you brought up, she could engage in dialogue. And when she talked to people and when she listened to them, she never used this tone of being superior or smarter. You could tell she connected with people right where they were. And that's what made so many people feel like they were her best friend. Not only that, but she was physically beautiful, but she was never conceited. She didn't take herself seriously that way. But I watched Cheslie give of herself in so many ways. The level of her generosity was just amazing. And in her death, as people shared their experiences with her, I learned even more the depth of her generosity. People that she would give some advice to, or she would support in their endeavors, where she would invest her time in others and in causes that were important to her. It was phenomenal. It's just absolutely incredible. And I say that in the book, just the number of seeds that she planted in people with her generosity.
Absolutely. Her words and combined with your words are just beautiful. And it's truly a gift to the world, April. And
Thank you.
I want to I want to end our conversation by what I said, I think it was before we even hit record on this interview, which was, I want this to be your platform. So I think it's appropriate for me to hand that over to you into your own words to end our conversation. And I'm going to give you as much time as you need, and I mean that in answering this. So take your time to think about this answer.
Okay.
Your daughter, in her final letter, wrote, "I hoped these feelings would eventually change, but I know they never will. They follow me through every accomplishment, success, family gathering, friendly dinner, and they are loudest during my failures, setbacks, and heartbreak." She continued writing to you, April. "I've never told you these feelings because I've never wanted you to worry." As a mother who's lost her daughter that cared so much about you, what is your message, April, to the person listening right now who doesn't want to be a burden to their loved ones?
I would say that love, when you love someone, burden is never part of the equation. That while you may feel the weight of your pain, people who love you want to hold you up and help you gain strength to carry that pain. And while for you, it feels like your emotions are valid and the pain is real, for people who love you, for people who want to support you, for the people who rely on the light that you bring, in those moments, reach for help and support. And if you can't find it in the contact list that you already have on your phone, you will find it in many organizations and many groups, or with a counselor. You will find it there. Life is hard and comes with ups and downs like a roller coaster. But life is worth living. And you are a part of a mosaic. Every one of us is part of a mosaic. And you are important and valued. And while your pain that you feel is real, there are people who want to support you. And it is in that pain that you should reach for someone, even if it's just to sit with them. Reach for someone, because you're not alone. You're not alone in your pain, in your struggle, or in your battle with a mental health condition. That's what I would say.